Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads. For our latest tier list, we will be ranking every single season of Star Wars television from best to worst in a tier list format. We are doing this one in honor of Andor Season 2 wrapping up and really Star Wars wrapping up for the entirety of the year. We are getting a new season of Visions, and that will have to, I guess, be on the next tier list. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. We do tier lists every single month. If you are a Patreon member or a YouTube member, you do get to vote in the tier list polls for what the tier list should be every month. For as little as 99 cents, you can vote in that. So make sure you check that out and see which tier is right for you, because the other tiers have a lot of great perks as well. Comment below, let us know your rankings of every single Star Wars TV season. We love to hear your guys' thoughts. Okay, so we pre-ranked these 5 seasons of Star Wars TV. Usually these videos are very long, and in order to help, cut down on the time, we pre-ranked the seasons of Droids, Ewoks, and Resistance. We're going to really start our tier list off with, and this is in release order, with season 1 or volume 1 of Star Wars Clone Wars. Now, Star Wars Clone Wars was released technically in 3 seasons, but we're going to go based on the more iconic volume 1, volume 2 releases from the DVDs, and that's also how you can watch them on Disney Plus if you're watching them currently there. It's kind of interesting that volume 1 and 2 have very, very distinct styles of storytelling. They're very different. Volume 1 is the micro series format. So these stories are bite-sized, a couple overarching stories throughout the entire season of Clone Wars, namely the Asajj Ventress story juxtaposed with the Anakin story, and then of course you have Obi-Wan and Dirge. But I love Ventress and I love Anakin. That stuff, that battle is one of my favorites of all time. And just as an interesting little piece of Star Wars history that Star Wars Clone Wars is, like, having this full season as a micro series, like it's so distinctly different from anything else we're going to talk about here. So it is kind of inherently hard to rate. And especially when you talk about character depth and the way a season can explore a character throughout multiple episodes, you don't necessarily get that with season 1 or volume 1 of Star Wars Clone Wars. But I do think everything in here is perfect for what the micro series bring. There's a lot of really good nonverbal storytelling as well. Gendy Tartakovsky does a great job just showing you things and letting you experience the battles. For me, this is an A tier season of Star Wars TV. I absolutely love this series and this volume. It's very difficult for me to pick between the two, but volume 1 just has a little bit more iconic stuff in it. So I put it in A tier.
Yeah, no disagreements there. This is somewhere closer to the top of A for me. Like you said, everything with Dirge, everything with Obi-Wan, Anakin. I think that relationship between them as master apprentice is so good here, and you can start to see the different things, the little trust, the lack of trust thereof. Gendy is just a master of using limited animation, but very expressive and emotive animation. Fordo, man, Fordo and the ARC Troopers. Clones have never been cool. I love the richness that 2008 Clone Wars achieves, but clones have never been cooler. You can say Republic Commander, you can say whatever. I don't think anything tops Fordo and his gang of ARC troopers. Next up, we have Volume 2, and this is after we've transitioned more into proper episodes. There's a little bit more arc structure to it. Frankly, I think that actually started making it a bit of a disservice to this show. I always felt like there was nothing that was going to match Volume 1, and then when I finally got around to watching Volume 2, my favorite part of it was kind of the montage. And then once that montage kind of ends, it's just not really my favorite. I don't think the story itself is great other than more like that final scene of him raising his like broken arm with all the other aliens too. I put it in B tier.
I put this one in A tier as well. It's lower than I have volume 1, but I disagree. I think the Obi-Wan and Anakin stuff is really compelling, especially for this format, for these versions of these characters where Anakin was much more like the Attack of the Clones Hayden Christensen version than the Revenge of the Sith Hayden Christensen version. At the time, obviously Revenge of the Sith didn't exist. So the characterizations that we gave, like, this was one of our best Anakin things at the time. I also just love Battle of Coruscant. Battle of Coruscant is so great. The General Grievous stuff with Shaak Ti, the end of the Battle of Hypori starting off this volume as well, and then to juxtapose the great action with the stuff with Obi-Wan and Anakin, I think it does a great job with what it does. So it's in my A tier.
I can give you bottom of A. It's just for me personally. It's not bad. It's just not as, iconic. It doesn't linger in my mind the same way as all of Volume 1 does.
Well, next up, we have season one of Star Wars The Clone Wars from 2008. This is the beginning of the 3D animated series. And this is easily the worst season of the show. There are highlights for sure, like Rookies is great. It's obviously an introduction to Cad Bane. So I think it's still a worthwhile season of Star Wars TV. And then, of course, the animation just looks really bad here. It looks worse than the film did. And then also, gets just so much better even in season two that this season sticks out like a sore thumb on rewatches. So for me, it's a B tier.
Yeah, this is a bottom of B for me as well. I agree with all the things you're saying. I mean, Rookies to this day, I'm as much as I love Echo and Fives, I still think about Heavy, right? Like Heavy sacrifice is just so iconic. The fact that they planted the seed of Domino Squad to like really transform this whole show. This show realizes like, hey, these are people. And it's a crazy situation to have like almost millions of you guys. What makes you guys stand apart? What makes you guys individuals? Next, we have season 2 of the Clone Wars. Solid step up. It just still has a lot of the same issues as season 1. So if you look at all the bounty hunter stuff with Boba Fett and all that, Aura Singh, everyone makes an appearance there. Fantastic episodes. Past that, it's a little bit of a tougher sell because again, animation's not great there. I think it's like more of like the flaws of season 1 become a little bit more obviously apparent here, but the bounty hunt, Underworld, everything really being developed here. Big fan of that. I think Ahsoka takes a lot of good steps here too. So it is B tier for me.
I think this is a huge step up. It's still B tier for me as well. Almost every episode is good or really good this season. There aren't as many great episodes, but there's a lot of iconic stuff in season 2 and I feel like season 2 often just gets lumped with season 1 because it's the same animation style. There are some great underrated arcs in here, whether it's something like the second battle of Geonosis or the zombie stuff, which I think is really really great. Some of my favorite stuff because as a big fan of horror, I love that they go in that direction. There's also the Holocron heist, which carries off of season 1, which is awesome. Introduction to Mandalore in this show. Like there's a lot of really good stuff and stuff that pays off definitely down the line. And so for me, it is B. Season 3 definitely takes a big step forward in that regard. Season 3 mostly gets remembered for the second half because it ends very strongly, but the first half is also quite good. It does have a little bit of a lull in the middle, and I think that's what would drop it a little bit lower on my list for me. But I really do like the beginning with the payoff for stuff from Rookies, the Clone Cadet stuff, the 99 episodes with ARC Troopers and the invasion of Camino. I did love the Night Sister stuff. You have the initial betrayal of Asajj Ventress by Count Dooku and the reintroduction to the Night Sisters here in Clone Wars, which was great. And then Mortis is one of my favorite arcs in the entirety of the Clone Wars. Citadel is great as well, but it's still firmly an A tier season of Clone Wars. I think this is great and a massive step up from seasons 1 and 2.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely concur. This is the first one that cracks into A tier for me from the show because, like you said, it's animation. It's got a strong start. Obviously, like I said, I loved everything about Domino Squad in this show and kind of going back to like a prequel and then jumping into the present. Oh man, that's just like an emotionally devastating arc, but it's also full of so many incredible things. 99, right? Like, come on, like iconic clone there. Mortis is something that has definitely changed from its initial depiction, but I think there's still a serious magic to it. Ending of the season with the slavers, like yeah, it's cool seeing Chewbacca, but it was fine. It didn't hurt. It was good to see that final like reunion between Ahsoka and Anakin, like reaffirming their relationship as Padawan and Master. I also think the Citadel arc is just fantastic. I know Republic Commando fans probably don't love that much as much, but I think it's just really well done. Everything with Echo, like there's stakes to the season, and we're just forgetting that the fact that Savage just kind of shows up in the season. Next, we have season 4, and season 4, as much as I enjoyed season 3, it's just on a different level, right? I mean, everyone's gonna go to the Umbara arc. Obviously, it's such a groundbreaking story for Clone Wars animation. So really seeing Savage and Maul work together, their development, I think that's also really fantastic. It does start a little slower. I don't think the Mon Cala arc is bad. It's not necessarily something that you expect to really kind of kick off after season 3 kind of also slowly comes to an end. Also, this is just a huge, huge season for Anakin. We've got the Citadel arc from the previous season, but then now we kind of transform that into everything that's going on personally with him with the Zagirians and the box, like the betrayal basically by Obi-Wan, right? That's a huge, huge thing for him. And that really, I think, is a big, big shift for everything that happens with Ahsoka. So with all that said, I definitely would put this season at like the top of A for me.
I would too. This is a top of A, and I think this is my very top of A out of everything else I have on the list. Season 4 is really great. Once you get into Umbara, pretty much everything after Umbara is top tier Clone Wars, including the return of Darth Maul here, which obviously is one of the most important and best things that the Clone Wars ever did. The next we have season 5, which in my opinion is the best season of the Clone Wars. I think everything from top to bottom is so much more cohesive. This season just works together so well. Even the lesser arcs still flow in the entirety of the season. You start out with the continuation of the Maul arc, and it's a great Maul episode where he reveals himself to the galaxy and challenges Obi-Wan. You have the death of Adikalia, stuff like that. So good. And then continues with the Onderon arc, which is so much more important than it used to be, with Saw Gerrera becoming such a big part of the Star Wars mythology and canon. And then obviously that relationship with Lux Bonteri continuing into the future. Like there's so many great things in the Onderon arc. The Gathering arc has had some continuation as well. Hu Yang now a part of Ahsoka. So there's so much richness in season 5. And even D Squad is just this weird kind of esoteric arc that's really fun and interesting. Like I didn't appreciate it enough when I was younger. Now I really do enjoy it. It's not one of my favorites, but it's still really good. And then just the continuation off after that, episode 14 through 20 is just perfect Clone Wars. It might be two of the like top 3 best arcs in the entire show, with the Darth Maul Shadow Collective stuff on Mandalore, and then you have the Wrong Jedi arc with Ahsoka leaving the Jedi Order. So for me, this is an S tier. It's the first S tier I have here on my list.
This might be a little controversial, but this is actually top of A and behind season 4 of the Clone Wars for me. I think a lot of it actually kind of comes down to B Squad. It's not like I hate it. I really did like it when I was a kid. I think that season 4 takes bigger swings that I enjoy. And then season 5 is more of like kind of finishing up a lot of those threads or just pushing them a little further. It loses some of that momentum. And like I said before, I do like when seasons kind of accelerate. And it does. It's just the acceleration in season 4 just feels a lot more consistent. I do not love the Barris stuff. I think over time I've kind of come to the realization that I needed way more.
Sure. I mean, I don't disagree with that. I'm not a huge fan of what they did with Barris either, but I think the arc itself is incredible for the character of Ahsoka. I love what they do with Ventress and for Anakin. And just that final episode alone is just so good. Since it is in S tier and it's one of only a few things I have in S tier, if we bump it down with to A tier, I think it needs to go at the top of A for me.
That's fine for me. Next up, we have season 6 of the Clone Wars, and these lost missions were only ever released on Netflix. It's got some incredible stuff. I mean, obviously, Fiz, if you don't already know by now, is my favorite clone trooper. So his sad demise, everything over Order 66, it really does make me sad. But then we have all the random weird Mace Windu, Jar Jar stuff that I'm like, okay, how's Talzin involved in this? And the fact that it is a shorter season really does not help. As a result, I kind of put it at like the very bottom of A, top of B.
I did also put this at the very bottom of A. It's my last thing on my A tier because half of the season is still excellent with the 4 Yoda episodes and then the 4 Fives episodes. It still is definitely in that A tier range. Like I said earlier, the Clone Wars always has warts. It's the nature of a show that's arc based. There are going to be a couple things that stand out that aren't quite as good as the rest every single season. But I still do think even the lesser episodes of season 6 are still pretty good. So for me, it still rounds into about an A tier, but it is my bottom of A. Next up is season 1 of Star Wars Rebels. Again, we're going in release order, so season 7 didn't come out of the Clone Wars until 2020. Season 1 of Rebels is a really good season of Rebels. To me, it's the worst of the 4. It's definitely when it was more feeding into that TVY7 all ages range, but I think it's an enjoyable show for the whole family. A lot of people who only watch season 1 really condemn Rebels based on season 1, but I think there's still a lot to really love here. I do think the first few episodes are quite fun. I think the finale is quite fun. The Grand Inquisitor is a really good character. I personally put it in B tier, but I put it ahead of Clone Wars season 1, but behind Clone Wars season 2.
Yeah, I put it in the same sort of distinction. It is still the lower part of B for me. Yeah, like you said, it is a very solid first season. I think one thing this season really does that has a lot of dividends by the end of the show's run, just how developed Lothal is, like how you go into the city, how you're out in the fields, stuff like Tarkin Town and all that. Like I think it's fantastic. Like even if it is simplified, like you said, Grand Inquisitor, I think is very intimidating. It really ends closer to like an A tier show, but it is that slower beginning that is like a little bit more sillier one-offs that I can't not forgive, but like I can't ignore. Next up, we have season 2 of Rebels, and man, this is a huge step up. Obviously, it starts off crazy because Darth Vader's here. I do have some problems with just how season 2 is structured a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I liked everything with Lost Commanders. It starts off fantastic, right? Like this is the season that is like Clone Wars continuation of sorts. After that, then it kinda leans back into stuff like Vizago and all that, and I'm like, "Okay," like, I wanted us to start getting a little bit more serious again. I still think it might be one of the best ever finales that we've ever had from anything Star Wars. It kinda just stays near the top of B for me, even though the actual major plot elements probably would have pushed it up to, like, a bottom of A.
I do have this show or this season in bottom of A. I think season 2 has enough great stuff that I can bypass a lot of the things that aren't quite as good. Rebels is a show that obviously wanted to be in that 15, 16 episode format, but with the upgrade to like a full-time show on Disney XD, it needed to follow that 22 episode format, and that definitely hampered the show. But when Rebels hit its peak, when it hit its stride, it was still as good or better than almost anything we see in the rest of the show in season 2. So I really, really loved a lot of the stuff we got. But I agree with you, it does have a little bit of a lull outside of the odd episode in the middle until you get towards that end. When you have, for me, when it really starts to pick up is the episode where Zeb and Agent Callus get stranded on the ice
Yeah.
planet. That stuff is so, so good, and it really obviously starts the turn for Agent Callus. For me, I had it at the bottom of A tier. I have it right after Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars Volume 2, but ahead of season 6 of the Clone Wars.
I'm fine with moving it up to the bottom of A.
Next up, we have season 3 of Star Wars Rebels. And season 3, I think, is more consistent top to bottom than season 2. It has less lulls and less mediocre episodes in its kind of like padded out runtime. And I think part of that has to do with bringing Thrawn in as the main villain because you have an Imperial as the main villain rather than like Darth Vader, who's kind of the main villain of season two's biggest moments. It allows you to have these episodes of the week in a little bit better flow because it does provide him as an overarching villain who can be a part of these different battles or somebody who's receiving feedback after each blow that the Empire receives via the hands of the rebels. So I think it does make for a little bit more cohesive stuff. I did love the stuff with the Bendu in this season. I thought that was great, seeing Kanan adjust to the fact that he's now blind, getting a little bit more of the origin of Sabine and her family history. Now we have the tie-in, obviously, with season 2 of Andor with Secret Cargo and the Mon Mothma mission. Twin Sons is one of my favorite episodes in this whole show. The death of Darth Maul at the hands of Obi-Wan, the way that comes full circle, it's beautiful. It's so well written. And the finale of season 3 is underrated as well. It's nowhere close to the finales of season 4 or season 2 in my opinion, but it is significantly better than season 1 finale, and it is a really strong season finale in its own right. It's maybe the best, most ruthless you see Thrawn in the entirety of the show. And so I thought that worked pretty well. Season 3 is a little bit more cohesive, top to bottom, and it does have enough standout moments like the Maul and Obi-Wan stuff that I would still put this in A, and I would definitely put it ahead of season 2.
A tougher season to judge because it has a lot more bigger names, but I do think this is better than season 2 for me. I think the only really bad episode for me was Iron Squadron. Everything with Mon Mothma, obviously, especially now in a post Andor season 2 world, definitely like hits even harder. But this is also like the Sabine season. I don't think I ever really was invested in her as a character until this season, and then when it comes out, everything with Mandalore, this is when like I she definitely got elevated to a character I really, really liked. And also just seeing Ezra, with a whole new look, everyone a bit older, a little wizened. I did like that. I really did like I was a big fan of this season. This is my favorite season. I put it somewhere between the middle of A to bottom of A. Next up, we have the final season of Rebels, season 4. I think it's fantastic. I mean, having Rook, be introduced here, just seeing everything with Thrawn, everything kinda changes, everything kinda moves to Yavin, we're getting closer to everything that's happening in the original trilogy. There's a lot more familiarity, but I think it was just such a strong choice to, like, make this a personal battle at the end, everything about saving Lothal and freeing it, right? And seeing the payoff and, like, Ahsoka and stuff, seeing that in live action, see how wonderful that planet can be, right? It's a wild ride to the finish, and it's so spiritual. It's absolutely spiritual, and I think that was the one thing that Rebels always handled well with the Force. Ezra's final sacrifice, everything that he has with Palpatine, like, it could have been stuff that was cheesy and ridiculous, but it rides that line of just, like, a very emotional hero's journey kinda being concluded here. I wanna say season 3 is my favorite, but it's not. Season 4, I think, is just objectively better. It doesn't have that fluff, which is why I put it more towards the top of A.
Yeah, I did too. This is one of my top of A picks. It's actually my second thing in A, right behind season 4 of Star Wars Clone Wars. I love this season of Rebels. I think top to bottom, this is the best. It's the most cohesive. It's the one that feels like it was built for the amount of episodes it has. Like every arc kind of builds into itself, almost in a way, kind of comparable to Andor season 2, where you have like the different arcs that build on each other over time. They culminate into something bigger. I mean, Rebels isn't quite as good as Andor season 2, but it does have that kind of feel where each arc is kind of contributing to the end game of season 4, and ultimately the end game, the last 8 episodes or so is so phenomenal that it's up there amongst the endings of any of these Star Wars shows. I really did love what they did here. So for me, it's an easy A tier. All right, next up we have The Mandalorian season 1, and controversially, I guess, on our channel, like I know both of us have never been like as big of a fanboy of season 1 of The Mandalorian as everybody else. I know speaking for me, I think this is a really good season of Star Wars TV. I don't think it's like the greatest thing ever. First episode's pretty good. Episodes 2 and 3 I think are really great. And then I do love episode 8 as well. Episode 7 is very good as well, but it does have like almost half of the season with episodes 4, 5, and 6 to me that are just fun, good stories. I feel like I always have to tear down Mandalorian season 1 because I don't think it's an S tier or anywhere close, but I still do think this is a really good, fun television show. Like, this is what Mandalorian, I think, at its core, should always strive to be. Adventure of the week style with a father and son that's really, really entertaining. I just don't think this season flows as well as season 2 together. It's borderline A for me, but I think I would put it right at the top of B.
I actually put this a little bit more mid B. I think I have some rather controversial opinions on The Mandalorian as a whole, but like you said, I think the first arc is pretty dang good. I'm not a fan of the first episode though, still. 7 8 is good. It just also kind of ends very abruptly. I think the biggest sin of the season is episode 5. You think going back to Tatooine would be like the most familiar episode for Star Wars fans, but, oh, man, I hated that bounty hunter kid. He was horrible. It's a middle of B for a lot of those reasons. Next up, we have Mandalorian season 2. Again, another controversial opinion apparently on our channel, but I think both of us really like season 2. I think it's really the peak of the show. I put it easily towards the top of A for me. I think, 1, it pays off a lot of threads from season 1, but yeah, it just accelerates all the way to the end there. I'm a much bigger fan of this season. I think it does everything right. The Ahsoka stuff is also quite well done too. If that was the only Jedi that we saw, like, for the whole season, I would've been like, "Yeah, that's still a great season," but then obviously the Luke stuff, it's a top of A for me, just behind Clone Wars.
I agree that it's A. For me, it's middle of A. It's not top of A, but I still really love season 1 of The Mandalorian. I do think this is a really great season and easily, to me, the best top to bottom of the entire show. I think it's the most cohesive. It follows one linear plot line all the way through. Sure, there's the Ice Spiders episode. It's not quite as good as the rest of the show, but I still think it's really fun and like a B-rate, B science fiction horror kind of vibe. I can understand people not liking it because they don't like that it went more linear versus episodic if they prefer the episodic nature of season 1. But what I don't understand is people who call this a cameo fest. Like, I don't think this is a cameo fest whatsoever. Sure, the Mandalorian has to meet a bunch of people who know Jedi in order to find the Jedi for Grogu, but that's a plot point that's set up in season 1. It's a plot point I think drives this show overall really, really well. I think the only thing that brings this show down in hindsight to me is the fact that they just wipe away the ending by putting Luke and the Grogu plot in the Book of Boba Fett, but it still doesn't get rid of the feelings that we all had in 2020, locked down during the holiday season for the first time, stuck at home watching this and really having all the feels with the Luke scene. Like, I think it just hit everybody. Everybody was joyous around this. I have it right in the middle, like smack dab right in the middle of my A tier. Next up, we have the Clone Wars season 7, another 2020 watch. Season 7 of the Clone Wars is a weird one for me because I remember it so fondly. There were such great times watching it with everybody and enjoying this season as it comes out. And so the Siege of Mandalore, everybody, that's what everybody talks about. And it is incredible. If it's not the best arc of the Clone Wars, which it definitely is amongst there for me, it's in that top two, three for pretty much everybody. It's absolutely amazing. But it is the rest of the season that like makes it very hard for me to rank this one. Like Bad Batch, I think is great. It's a really good B arc of this show because there are only three arcs of the show. It's a really good B arc, but to me, it's not close to my like top 10, top 15 arcs of the Clone Wars. I think it's a very good one. And then you have the Martez sisters arc, which is just awful. Not only is it awful, but it killed the pacing of this season because it was 4 episodes long when it really should have been like two. I put it at the bottom of A.
I have it actually more of a mid-A. Again, like, you said, the Bad Batch arc could be better. There's some small things that they cut out that I wish they actually kept in. I mean, that Martez arc, I mean, it could have been 3 episodes. But yeah, Season Mandalore is just fantastic. Absolutely out of this world. For me, because of that issue with the Martez arc, it kinda goes to the middle of A. Next up, we had Bad Batch Season 1, and this show got off to a fantastic start. I mean, that whole like 1 hour premiere. Crosshair, has some great stuff. Like it's a tragedy that like he's not with his brothers, right? I think Rampart is actually a very solid villain, right? Like yeah, we do start off with Tarkin, but then we go a little bit more personal, kind of get a little bit more grounded with the chain codes and everything. Yeah, I think I'm a really big fan of just like the setup of the early Imperial regime. AZ kind of comes back in that final few episodes with Camino. Yeah, there's some weird stuff like the whole carts episodes. I'm not a big fan of Sid in general, but I think she's probably the most tolerable that she is in this first season. I'd say it's solidly like top of B for me.
There are very few bad episodes or really mediocre episodes at all in season one. I think it's one of the most cohesive of the three, or it's more cohesive than season two. It has a great mid-season arc. It has a great first episode, I should say. Definitely where it does get bogged down is when they start going on their mission of the week type thing, but it does pick up constantly. Like it'll pick up with the Hera stuff and then it drops down a little bit with the infested episode, and then it picks back up with the war mantle stuff and Camino. So I think overall this is a really good season of TV. It is towards the top of my beat. Then next up we have Vision season one, another one that's kind of difficult to rank because it doesn't compare to any of this other stuff very well. It's a bunch of short films. I like season one of Vision's highs are way higher than season two. To me, season two has one episode that reaches into that top five Visions episodes ever. The Duel, The Village Bride, The Elder, and The Ninth Jedi are all fantastic. It's in my B tier. I would have it at the bottom of B tier out of all this stuff.
Vision season 1, like you said, it is a fun novelty. The novelty wore off pretty quickly for me. Like, yeah, obviously the Ninth Jedi, now that we live in a world that we're getting like a Ninth Jedi anime series, that's fantastic. That's cool. It's got a strong legacy. This was closer to the top upper echelon of C, but yeah, I don't think I'm just a fan of Visions as a concept anymore.
The way to really look at Visions is, yes, like you said, a novelty, but it's a short film collection. It's an anthology, so it's kind of like how much enjoyment you get out of its peaks. I have it at the bottom of B. I think it's B tier.
That's fine. Sure.
Okay.
Next up, we have Book of Boba Fett. Has not much to do with Boba Fett. It really tries to almost like nerf him as a character after what we see in Mando season 2, where I think he's pitch perfect. Everything with the Tuskens is fantastic. Frankly, it peaked at episode 2. It's just everything with the most Espa stuff is just so dragged out. But then there's some cool concept like Madame Garza, right? Like I did like the idea of that, seeing the twin huts and all that. But then the show just gets hijacked, right? It becomes Mando's 2.5. That first Mando episode's great until you realize it's wasting most of that back episode for just building that N1. Yeah, I do like the finale. I think it actually is pretty good, even if it is cheesy and the blocking is a little mediocre. But this show kind of undoing Mando season two's ending. The show not really being about Boba and kinda nerfing him a bit, that really weighed it down for me. This is where you could tell that Favreau was rushing, but I can't lie, I do watch this and I am always entertained for some strange reason. So I would say it's like a C tier for me.
Yeah, I put this in F. To me, it's one of the worst shows they've ever made. I think this show just is so completely all over the place in every way possible, whether it's a structure, character, the way it force feeds Mandalorian stuff into it when it's only 7 episodes to begin with. The fact that you have two of them are in completely Mandalorian with just one appearance of Boba Fett and doesn't even have a line for 2 episodes, it's crazy. Like I love those episodes too. Like I think episode 6 is fantastic, but it's not a Boba Fett episode. So tonally, structurally, this thing is all over the place. They bring in the Tuskens as such a formidable part of Boba's legend, the way he builds himself up, the way this show seemed to be kind of almost becoming the Kenobi book, where it's like we're gonna embrace everything that's Tatooine and really bring it all in. Nope. After the fourth episode, it completely abandons the Tuskens. They all die and it just moves on. It's like, okay, that storyline's over now. And I guess we'll reveal that the Pikes killed them. So now he's going to be upset at the Pikes when, I mean, he's already upset at the Pikes are trying to kill him too. So, like, it was just so dumb, the whole Tusken thing. Like, if you were going to go for it, why not go for it? Bring it full circle. The constant Boba Fett in the back to tank always hurt, even though this is years after the Sarlacc pit thing. And we just saw him in Mandalorian season 2 being so badass. And I think purely just from like a technical standpoint, just like looking at this show, even though there are elements that I did enjoy, I just don't think this is a good show at all. So I think this has got to be an F tier.
Alright, so then we'll compromise and put it in D.
Next up is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Every time I talk about Obi-Wan, every time I rewatch Obi-Wan, I've seen it like 4 times now, and unfortunately it gets worse every time I watch it, but it's one of those things that just it has so many moments that are so great that it pulls you in, and it does definitely get its hooks into you emotionally. If you love the prequels, if you love these characters, like it really grabs you. And then there are moments where you're like, "What the hell were they thinking here?" Visually, storytelling wise, there's just things that are all over the place with this show. It settles in at sea. I have it ahead of Droids and Ewoks, but it is a show that like has such incredible highs. The stuff between Obi-Wan and Vader worked really well. I think Vader's awesome in this entire show. Like I don't think there's anything bad with Vader. I think the stuff with Riva and Vader definitely doesn't work. Like letting her live into season or episode 6 to me is just a huge mistake. The fact that she lives beyond episode 6, she knows where Vader's kids are, she knows who he is. Like all that just presents a gigantic lore plot hole that they need to cover at some point. The final scene with Obi-Wan and Leia on Alderaan is such a heartwarming scene, very touching, talking about Anakin and Padme. It really brings the prequels full circle. There's the great hello there line drop. The scene with Qui-Gon's also great. The volume is not used well here at all. It's staged really poorly. There's so many things that really make me upset about the show, but there's so many things I absolutely love. So that's why it settles right in at C.
Yeah, it's my top of C, and I echo a lot of the same sentiments. It's crazy that you have such a accomplished cinematographer, but then you realize, hey, COVID restrictions and filming on the volume is really not the same as filming on set, filming on sound stages, and all that. And it's very evident that it's a cramped show. Again, I don't love Riva being alive and then, fighting and trying to chase after Luke, right? But I think the opposite end of it, seeing Owen Beru and how they got developed in this show and how they're like, "He is my son, like, I love him more than anything else," right? Like, man, stuff like that, I'm like, "Man, that's really good." I really like the acting there. Again, I'm also a fan of a little Leia. I think she's absolutely phenomenal in this role. Like you said, there's just issues with, like, everything looks super grainy. You could tell the makeup wasn't super great in this show. Episode 4 is just Fallen Order, but worse when it could have had some very interesting, like, trauma processing, but I love all the Vader stuff. I love all the Obi-Wan stuff. I think there is some very underrated fighting in this show. That finale fight is great. I don't love Deborah Chow's shaky cam. It's not great in Mando's. I'm letting it slide with COVID. I'm letting it slide with just all the changes that they made converting this from a movie trilogy to a TV show. I don't hate it. I don't love it as much as I want to, but it's a top of C because I think there's some fantastic elements I cannot ignore. Next up, we have Andor season 1, S tier. I mean, like, I don't really have to say anything. It's a very deliberate show. It's very grounded. Doesn't really make sense that you'd call the show Andor about this guy who's just in Rogue One that's like, kind of almost a little scummy, kind of doing things that are not very textbook Rebel, but then you see it unfold with Tony Gilroy's show running with the fantastic writing behind it, and then obviously One Way Out, fantastic. Andy Serkis is so good as Kino Loy. It has this, like, interesting transition episode too, coming into that little final 2 episodes. Not the top of S for me, but it is S.
I agree. S tier, it's incredible. And then after season two, it pays off even more, even small moments. And I think just waiting to see, right, in season two, the style crystallize, the way Tony Gilroy tells his story, pulls together season one. So this was already like an S tier before season two, but now the way Tony Gilroy plotted season one to connect with season two, it's just fantastic. So absolutely S tier. Then we have Tales of the Jedi. This is the first of the Tales of that we're going to talk about. And to me, it's easily still the best. The Dooku arc is incredible. It's so good. And the Ahsoka stuff, I think, is pretty good as well. It's less compelling. I think because, I mean, obviously we know so much about Ahsoka. So the stories that they were going to tell about Ahsoka here, we're never going to reach that level. But I think really what's truly impressive is now 2 series on, the fact that they were able to so expertly capture Dooku's story in only 3 episodes. It's even more impressive now having seen them attempt and, in my opinion, fail to do it with Barris and then do it with Cad Bane, but it with a much less complex character. And I thought they did it pretty well with Cad Bane, but just seeing how they were able to take a complex character like Dooku and give a compelling and interesting and rewarding origin story for him into the dark side. Like I thought, it still blows my mind that that worked so well. And so it's one of those weird things. Only 6 episodes. One arc is like borderline an S tier arc. The other arc is to me like a B tier arc. So for me, leveled this off at the bottom of A. I think this is a really great season for this type of format.
Yeah, I have it basically in the same position, maybe a little bit closer to mid-A. Everything with Dooku episodes, so good. Huge fan of that, huge fan of seeing, like, the history of, like, a lot of the prequel Jedi around him and what they were trying to do. Obviously, that final fight with Yaddle is so well done. I think Bryce Dallas Howard really elevates her too. I'm partial to the origin episode for Ahsoka. They're finally pushing more overtly a very obvious Indian iconography and origins to that character finally, which I did like that second episode too, right? Obviously, with her training for that final arc in season Mandalore when Order 66 goes on. I don't like that last episode. Bottom of A. Next up, we have Bad Batch season 2. I've always been a lot kinder to this season than a lot of other people. Like, they are treading water a lot in this season, but there's some insanely iconic episode. Tech definitely gets to have a huge role in the season from the start, from Spoils of War. But then you have like great crosshair episodes, like the Solitary Clone. Absolutely fantastic things about the season. It just happens to have a lot of episodes with Sid that you're like, why are we doing this? Why does this matter? For me, I put it near the bottom of B. Not bad by any means. I think the best episodes are some of the best of the whole show. It's very sporadic, and it's definitely more crosshair heavy when it does happen.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about season two, right? Is if you go back and you look at like IMDb or just a list of the episodes, there are some really good and great episodes in this season. It just didn't feel like watching it live that this season was nearly as cohesive as the first season. Like it was a lot of standalone singular episodes. And then the times that it did pick up the story were when it got really good, but then it would drop the story again. And it
Yeah.
just, this was the season that felt like they were the most stuck between, are we a clone show? Are we a post Revenge of the Sith clone show? Or are we a Bad Batch show? And with that being said, like I still think this is a pretty good season. This is easily my least favorite of the three, but it is still solid. Like Bad Batch is a solid, good show all the way through. There's really nothing that's awful in the Bad Batch. And so for me, it's still a mid B season of Star Wars TV. Next up, we had The Mandalorian season 3, which came out right towards the end of the Bad Batch, even overlapping with the last few episodes of the season. And for me, this is a season I don't really like. There are some things I do like. I think visually, this is a big step up. There's a lot of really impressive dogfights and big CGI set pieces. This was the show that felt like it brought the volume back. This returned the scale to volume shooting. And so I appreciated that. There are some good episodes still, like the pirate episode on Navarro, I think is really good. I mean, knowing that this is the last time we'll see Carl Weathers as Grief Karga makes it bittersweet. Bo Katan has a few good moments, but then I really don't like the way they handle mishandled her in the second half of the show. There is that one awful episode with Lizzo and Jack Black, and the way that she can reclaim the dark saber when that really seemed like it was like the focus of the season. It just gets thrown in there for a very lame ending to that. And I wanted more from that. It really, in my opinion, downgrades the entire journey of Bo-Katan in that season because you feel like you're building to something and it just never really comes to fruition. And I think the show definitely mishandles the way it treats the Mandalorians throughout the season. You have the push and pull of the helmeted Mandalorians and the non-helmeted Mandalorians, the conflict of religion there, but the show never really goes into it outside of singular episode moments. It's not a show that really embraces that idea. It tries to shoehorn in imperial elements. It tries to shoehorn in goofy comedy and episodic elements, and it just makes for what was kind of an underwhelming finale, especially with the clone reveal from Moff Gideon. It was an underwhelming end to that character if it truly is the end of that character. And so ultimately, while there are moments I liked in season 3 of The Mandalorian, I also just think it's a complete mess of a season. It doesn't work for me as a cohesive product. There are episodes that can work, but not as a product overall. And so for me, I actually put this in D tier. I don't think it's a good season of Star Wars TV.
This is gonna be another controversial opinion, but this is it's my second favorite season of The Mandalorian. I have this ahead of season 1. Some of it comes down to the fact that, again, I don't really like 4, 5, 6 in season 1. Yes, I agree the dark saber is mishandled. Like, that it was awesome seeing Bo-Katan wield it, and then you're like, "Oh, it's a little aha, I guess I don't truly have it because I was defeated, and then she defeated who defeated me, so it's her." So I agree. That is the weakest thing for me in the season. But for me, a lot of it kinda comes down to sequencing. I think if you just did the pirate stuff first, a lot of the stuff with Elia Kane actually makes a lot more sense in that 3rd episode for me. I think everything on Mandalore itself is gorgeous looking. It's some of the best the show has ever looked. I think his initial explorations were fine. It's just I didn't understand why that was, like, in our 2nd episode. I don't know, for me, I personally enjoy season 3. I just think that it's just the sequencing that's really bad and the dark saber's mishandled. I'm also someone that's a lot more open to the ideas that characters kinda stagnating and also, like, reverting a little bit at points. I think it does really expand and set up a lot of stuff, like, with the Shadow Council and everything that I think will get paid off. I just wish that he got a moment to take off his helmet and to actually to really consider why he has had his backslide. What has he learned from Bo-Katan? Well, for me, I actually put it mid B.
Well, then I guess it levels out at C.
Vision season 2 is something I just don't really remember or care to remember too much of. Like there are some cool episodes like Screecher's Reach. I'm not gonna deny that. But then I don't know, episodes like Sith I thought had so much more unique promise and premise, and then it just doesn't really go that well. Yeah, it was nice, it was silly, it was fun, but it was so forgettable. Honestly, it's like a bottom of C, almost pushing D.
Yeah, it's my bottom of C as well. I think this season is incredibly forgettable. The one thing I do like about this season is the really dramatically different animation styles. The fact you got some claymation, some stop motion, some 2D animation, some 3D animation. There's a lot of really different, interesting ideas here and didn't have nearly the impact or the hype of season 1. And so for me, it is definitely a C tier. Next up, we have Ahsoka season 1. Ahsoka is another one like Obi-Wan. I loved it when I first saw it. It's definitely gotten worse every time I've watched it since, but I don't think it's gotten nearly as bad as Obi-Wan because it just doesn't have the valleys that Obi-Wan has. Ahsoka, most of its problems is in its generic structure and a lot of the ways it crams too much story in it. It's like Disney Plus 101 problems, right? You have the ending that's incredibly rushed, you have the beginning that's kind of slow. Then you have a lot of things and inconsistencies in the ways characters are portrayed. I don't like Sabine being force sensitive. It's something that can grow on me. I'm open to it, but it's not an idea that I liked initially, and I don't think it's well done in this season. They tell us it's earned because of all these things that happened off screen, but kind of until we see those off screen moments, it's going to be hard to accept. Now they can absolutely redeem it in season 2 if it's great and they, continue to push her and train her. Other things involved with Rebels, though, I think do work, like a surprisingly good Mary Elizabeth Winstead performance as Hera. I think she's surprisingly really, really solid. The stuff with Anakin and Ahsoka is excellent. And that's the problem with the show overall is when the show decides to be the Ahsoka show, it works. When it decides to be Rebels season 5, it doesn't work as well. And when it decides to be not just Rebels season 5, but also the impetus for the next huge wave of New Republic Mandalorian storytelling, that's when it really falls. This season really could have been a couple seasons because it is such a roller coaster in terms of its speed. Big redeeming factor for sure is Ray Stevenson's Baylan Skoll. Best character in the whole show. This is a B tier, especially when we look at this list.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo a lot of the same sentiments. If Sabine is gonna have the Force, make her almost like an equivalent of a Star Wars version of a squib. More of my issue is just the fact that we don't get to see that training between her and Ahsoka that led to their initial separation. What I do really like though is actually how Ahsoka's handled. I know it's controversial because everyone's like, "Oh, Rosario's always just crossing her arms. That's all she does. She's always stoic and all that." For someone who's almost forcibly turned alive and then has to figure out their way off of Malachor and then come back and then has this not so great experience with Sabine. I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised. And seeing that how she gets changed by her interactions with Balin, obviously reconnecting with Anakin in the world between worlds. After that, you start seeing the spark. I really don't get this argument that people say that she doesn't change by the end of the show. This is a classic example of Filoni having like a very solid season one, but then it's his season two onwards that he like transforms and makes the story a lot better. Every time I watch it, I'm really happy with it, so I give it more of an upper B. Next, we got Bad Batch season 3. I do think this is handled fairly well. By the start of the season, it's already very obvious there's no more, like, clone rebellion going on. This is about the family, about the unit, and with that focus, without Tech, with Crosshair kind of return and everything, I think it's done really well. Again, I love seeing what they do with Crosshair. He had some great episodes in season 2, and reintegrating him is definitely a challenge, I like that. Hunter finally gets a little bit more movement and impetus again. Omega, especially with her capture, like, she really becomes a lot more compelling for me. She grows up very quickly. I just genuinely think the biggest issue is more the fact that everything with Mount Tantus feels like it's more of like, "Oh, okay, that's a cool, like, reference to Legends," instead of, like, setting the stage for something to be really built out and fleshed out in the future. I think it's just really solid and consistent throughout. I really like all the dynamic. It's just behind season 1 for me just because season 1 has some crazy highs, but the consistency of the season is not something to, like, easily ignore. So I put it somewhere in the middle of B.
Yeah, I actually put this at the very top of B. I think this is the best season of Bad Batch to me. The consistency is what wins it over. I just love how linear this season is. I think it works really well, really hyper focuses on the characters and who they are and what they do. And it lives up to the name The Bad Batch. And I quite liked what they did with Crosshair and how they brought him back into the fold. I liked how the Batch live on for Tech post his death. Like, I think all of it works quite well. So for me, it's a top of B. All right, well, next up is the second season of Tales of, and it's Tales of the Empire. This was a pretty underwhelming season of Tales of. First of all, we have two subjects for this season who aren't really related to the Empire whatsoever. You have Barriss, who is briefly part of the Empire in her Inquisitor days, but then her story spans a significant amount of time. She was a character that they did a complete 180 on. Here, their justifications for it never really play out. It's something that's extremely fast. It's another one of these Star Wars shows that the idea, the story on paper, it's interesting, but when you put it in practice in three like 12-minute episodes, it just does not work, especially compared to something like Dooku, which does the same thing. And then you have the Morgan Elsbeth stuff, which does feel more like a showcase for how can we put a bunch of cameos into this new art style. There's almost nothing in her story that makes me really interested in her. This is a C tier, but it's at the bottom of C for me.
Yeah, it's also bottom of C for me. Everything with Morgan is better with everything around Morgan. Why do I really care about Morgan? I mean, the Bear stuff is more frustrating to me because I did really like that final episode. It's just that second episode and all that, you're like, this is such a quick turn. Almost killed off the Tales of series before Tales of the Underworld. So, bottom of C. Next up is The Acolyte. I maintain there is a great show here. It's just that it's such a short episode runtime for every single episode. I didn't like how the Brendock flashback was split in two. I don't think it needed to be two. Very poor decisions made in the production of it. The story you don't have to love, but I think there was a lot there that is pretty interesting. But then you have characters like Vernestra who just don't line up anywhere close to their book version. I do like everything with Chimera. I think Chimera is such a fascinating, fascinating character. He's a perfect example of a breakaway Sith before the Bay Knight Sith are restored by Plagueis. Just don't like the twins. I think the twins, again, just underserved throughout the whole story. Everything with Chimera, the fighting, everything, the martial arts, it's fantastic stuff. It should have just been focused on the Sith and just purely Sith Acolyte, and then have a couple occasional Jedi. Yeah, I don't love the show, but for some strange reason, every time I go back to watch an episode, I do get sunk into the world. I give it a C.
Yeah, you guys know where I'm gonna put it. It's F. I really don't like this show at all. It stinks. It doesn't work. The characters are abysmal. Things happen off screen, never explained. Character motivations are a wash. They change their decisions every single episode. You never know where Mayor Osh are coming from. Like you said, they're the worst part of the show and they're the leads. They just flip flop constantly. Whenever the plot needs them to, they flip flop. Now that it's canceled, there's so many things, just like Obi-Wan and I said with Riva, this whole thing with the virgins and like the twins and the possible virgin birth of these kids and like what's going on with all that. I don't think it'll ever get tackled. And that's unfortunate because it's such a massive plot hole. It's such a massive thing that detracts from the overall lore of Star Wars that it's like, when are you going to explain this? It's set up as a big mystery box and it's just never explained in this. And I thought it was really abysmal. The witches were rough. I did not like the singing and the chanting. It just didn't work. I can see what they're trying to do. Again, lightsaber fights are the like kind of the only redeeming thing to me about the show. Things that happen for no apparent reason, just for plot convenience. Like when Basil crashes the ship, it's like, what is going on? There's no specific reason for this, and things just aren't explained. And run times are part of it. It's just why is the show so short? It's one of my least favorite Star Wars things ever. So it's an easy F. But since you have it in C, it is a D. All right. Well, next up is Skeleton Crew, which was kind of a breath of fresh air, especially coming off of the Acolyte. But it was a nice, refreshing little fun show. I enjoyed Skeleton Crew, kind of in that solo Star Wars story vein, where it's like it's kind of this forgettable piece of media that I don't know if I'll ever really go back to consistently, but as a fun piece of escapism in that sci-fi fantasy space, this was a pretty successful show. Similarly to a lot of Disney Plus shows, things just kind of happen at the end. There's a lot of convenience for convenience sake. Things aren't explained or gone into. Like they introduce ideas that are interesting, and then it's like, yeah, this is just how it is. We're not going to actually give you more of it. And that was a little frustrating. But I loved Jude Law as John Nanawood. I thought he was great. Cast of Kids was really fun. Neil was a great addition. For me, it's like a solidly middle B show. I did like this.
Star Wars meets Goonies, very much 80s kids fantasy, and it was. It really was. Like you said, I love the kids. Neil obviously is a stand-up, but KB, I mean, just the chemistry was just off the charts. I absolutely love the kids, and then their chemistry with Jude Law. I mean, Nick Frost absolutely puts in a killer performance too. Like the parents should have had a little bit more of the grounded mystery. It's a very solid mid B. I absolutely had a great time, it was fun. Next, we get into Andor season 2. This is the top of S for me. It's just a masterpiece. It freaking works. So much payoff, like you said, with Cyril. Like, I think he's one of the best characters out of it. Dedra being the reason for, like, everything kinda going wrong for the Imperials. Mon Mothma, obviously, she gets her escape and all, but I love the daughter getting married off and some of the tension of that and, having to kill off her friend. Gorman Massacre, so well done. Even if I do wish it was a little bit bigger. Ben Mendelsohn, man, oh my god, he finally became Director Krennic like I imagined him and all the stuff coming out before Rogue One. It makes Rogue One hurt so much more. It's the fact that they mastered their style, managed to cram 4 years and not feel like you've missed out on anything, but just wanted more. That's a sign of a great show, so, yeah, season 2, it's a top of S for me.
Definitely agree. It's top of S. I think it's the best season of Star Wars TV we've ever gotten, probably ever will get. It's incredible. I don't think a Star Wars show has ever had a better 7 episode stretch. I mean, not too many shows ever have as good as 7 episode stretches as Andor season 2 did from episode 6 to 12. It was so incredible. And season 2 solidifies all the things that are great about season 1. Like I was saying, for season 1, it's just the perfect package, the pairing of the 2. You see so many things from season 1 that felt unimportant delivered on in season 2, and then you see things in season 2 that you didn't even think about really in season 1, but they came full circle and they really delivered. And I just thought it was magical, it was beautiful, it was incredibly well written, it was beautifully directed. I thought the Gorman Massacre was perfect. Absolutely loved that episode. Loved the Mon Mothma escape episode as well. Loved the finale. Loved the Luthen origin story episode and the Clea stuff there. When you look at it with the Clone Wars, it's like, yeah, Clone Wars, I have more nostalgia for it. Feels a little more Star Wars to me because it's been there forever. But when we're breaking it down season by season, it's really impossible to not say that Andor season 1 and 2 are the best seasons of Star Wars TV. It is definitely top of S tier, but that's not the last thing we have to talk about because during Andor season 2, we got Tales of the Underworld, which to me was a little bit of a return to form for the Tales of series. Cad Bane, I thought was great. I thought that arc was so much better than I expected. So all of it worked beautifully in a Western sense. The Ventress stuff, I was a little more underwhelmed by just purely because, again, I'll repeat it again. I'm just underwhelmed by the fact that they brought her back from the dead in general out of Dark Disciple. I've yet to see anything from Bad Batch or Tales of the Underworld that makes me want her to be back, but I still thought they were fine episodes. And again, I think these Ventress episodes, while maybe not as thematically rich as some, were still way better than pretty much anything else in Tales of the Empire. So for me, Tales of the Underworld is firmly a mid B tier.
Did we need the Cad Bane story? No, but was it handled super well? Yeah. Obviously, knowing that he's got progeny that he'll never really have contact with, connection to. Fantastic stuff. Yeah, the Assad stuff is not great. It's good. I think it's actually quite good because the fact that they actually built off of the end of Dark Disciple, that's the thing. I wanna know what keeps her away now, right? I did also really like the Jedi Youngling Lyko, the most consistent probably of all 3 of the shows, quality-wise. Also, just like, do I really care as much about Asajj and Cad? Not really. So, that puts it more towards, like, the middle of B, lower B for me, but, hey, still a really good return to form for this show.
So that's our tier list. Thank you guys so much for watching. Before we wrap up here, make sure you check out my tier list right here. You can see how I ranked everything, what I was referencing throughout the video. And then here you can see Sanak's tier list. And you can see how he ranked everything and everything he was referencing throughout the video. Which one do you guys agree with more? Let us know in the comments below. Let us know what you thought, your rankings. What are your favorite Star Wars TV shows? What are your least favorite Star Wars TV shows? Let us know all of that in the comments below. Make sure you hit that like button if you haven't. Really helps out the channel. It's easy to do. Subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. You can check out our Patreon and YouTube membership programs if you're interested in being one of the people who votes on the next topic for the tier list. Thank you so much for watching this month's tier list, and we will see you guys all next time.